How you doing?
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Todd Miller, the program coordinator of the Squirrel Hill Historical Society, and I'm delighted that all of you are here today to partake of this wonderful program on the history of the stained glass windows at Congregation Beth Shalom. I want to thank at this time Barbara Oleinick, our speaker, for sharing her time and expertise with us, and also special thanks to Chris Hall and Sherry Woldenberg for their assistance with making this program possible. I'd also like to thank the president of the Squirrel Hill Historical Society, Jim Hammond, and Vice President Helen Wilson for their support in helping this event materialize. And we have some of our board members here, Tony and Davina, and is there anybody else? Audrey Glickman behind the camera. So thank you, and Gene Binstock. So thank you all for your service to the Historical Society, and again, thank you all for being here. And at this time, it's my pleasure to turn the program over to Barbara.
Thank you. I first became interested in the stained glass windows in the main sanctuary during a high holiday service. At Beth Shalom, the high holiday services are about 4 hours long. And during this service, I have to confess that there were 1 or 2 times when my mind wandered. And I started looking at all the windows. And they are rich with detail. But I wasn't sure what all that detail meant. And when I asked about it, there was a little bit of information, but not as much as I was hoping to find. So I started this quest on researching all of these windows, and it has been an adventure. Now, for all of you in the Squirrel Hill Historical Society, if anyone asked you what to archive, I would suggest you tell them who built things, who designed things, and that the chairman of the decorating committee is not as essential. Just me. So, before we go upstairs to the main sanctuary, I'd like to give you just a little bit of background. Beth Shalom was founded in 1917 by 35 families, and they started meeting on the second floor of 5802 Forbes Avenue, which was at the time the Orpheum Theater, and today is the Squirrel Hill Cafe. If you went to school here, it's the Squirrel Cage. Okay? Now this, the first year, 100 people showed up for the high holiday services, and in the second year, 350 showed up, and that is when they started the building fund. And on Yom Kippur, they had pledged $15,000 to build the new building. This is a photo of the signing of the building contract, which was February 19th, 1922. And the groundbreaking was a month earlier. Now, they had chosen Alexander Sharov to be the architect. Sharov was the son of Russian immigrants. He was born in Richmond, Virginia, and he came to Pittsburgh to study architecture with Henry Hornbostel at Carnegie Tech. Now, Sharov had his own firm, Sharov and Friedman, and that firm designed, in addition to Beth Shalom, B'nai Emunah in Greenfield, Tree of Life, some additions to Rodef Shalom, synagogues in Monessen, Katanning, Johnstown, and the JCC in Morgantown, in addition, of course, to homes, restaurants, and stores. He also happens to be the grandfather of one of our members. Now, there are 2 major stained glass studios in Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh Stained Glass and Hunt Studios. Now, Hunt Studios has a tendency to do more Catholic churches, and Pittsburgh Stained Glass does more Protestant churches and synagogues. Kirk Weaver is the president of Pittsburgh Stained Glass, and he is the 3rd generation. They were commissioned to do 5 windows for the first building. This is a picture of it complete in 1923, and you can see there's the large window, and then you can see 3 of the 4 windows on the front of the building. Now, there was a dedication On September 2nd, 1923, I think it was at 1:30 in the afternoon, and all of the old-time ceremonials were included according to the Jewish criterion. I have no idea what that means. But I can tell you that this was one elaborate program, because just as a small example, the architect presented the building to the chairman of the building committee, who then presented it to the chairman of the finance committee, who then presented the building to the vice president, who accepted the building on behalf of the congregation. Although Sharov provided a lot of the concepts for the window, it was Howard Wilbert who was actually the art designer. He was born in Pittsburgh in 1891. He trained with a local artist and went to work for Pittsburgh Stained Glass. He did serve during World War I, and he spent a year in France where he got to see some really fine old glass. When he returned, he spent a year in Boston at Oleinick Studios, and when he returned to Pittsburgh Stained Glass, he worked his way into becoming the chief designer. Wilbert was recognized all over the place for his work. He designed windows for over 500 churches, a couple of the nationality rooms at Pitt, the Stephen Foster Memorial, the chapel at Langley Air Force Base, and the chapel at the Citadel Academy in Charleston. Magnificent work. In 1969, one of his windows was put on display at Carnegie Museum, and that was the Adoration of the Magi, and that was done in the 14th century Gothic style. They started a new sanctuary, which was completed in 1931, and you can see that we've got 3 windows on the front and 3 windows on the side. This is the, I have up their original bema. Bema just means platform. This is the front of the building. This is the Bartlett Street side of the building. These are windows that you, of course, can't see from the previous picture. And these are the 10 Commandments. These were moved when the sanctuary was expanded, which was completed in 1970. And all of that border work, which you see there, was removed from the windows so that it would fit into the new space. The expansion was done, the architect was Harry Lefkowitz. I could not find a picture of him, but he designed the Oranger building in Braddock, which you might be aware of. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. And he was also one of the 2 architects who designed Chatham Center. Now, the art designer was Peter Brahm. This is from a 1956 article when Brahm was trying to establish his own studios. This was before he went to work with Pittsburgh Stained Glass. He designed 6 additional windows in the main sanctuary, and of course those really matched the first windows that were made. But he also designed windows for a new chapel that was put in here, which was very, very modern. And those are in the hallway by the administrative offices, if you would like to take a walk and see them when this is over. His relationship with Pittsburgh Stained Glass did not last very long, because it was said that his ego was greater than his talent. Now, these 3 windows are the ones that were in the front of the building over those bronze doors. And you can only see these when you go up onto the balcony. And I'm bringing this to your attention because these are repetitive. Unlike all the other windows in the building, okay, all of the symbols are very much the same. Okay? Now, this is supposed to represent the skies, the land, and the seas, and you have the rising and the setting sun here. I bring this up because of the windows that I found. Whenever I was researching this, I called Pittsburgh Stained Glass, and Kirk Weaver answered. I told him who I was, that I was researching the windows, trying to find out who made them. And he said, oh, we did. I think it was 1923. I wasn't the least bit impressed that the president of the company happened to have a memory of 100 years of customers' work. No, not at all. So we made arrangements to go down so I could look at the contracts, all that sort of thing that he already had. He kept all of these records. And then he said, oh, by the way, we have one of your windows. It's on our loading dock. It's been there since 1970. I said, oh, great. So when I went down to the studios to meet with him, he had pulled out some of the panels. And these were just on a light board. This is just a picture I took while they were propped up on the light board, which is why they look a little bit odd. And then we went to the loading dock and looked in the crate, and all of these panels were repeated. I don't know where this window came from, but it was removed whenever the expansion happened, and they added that school building off to one side. So, I'm going to tell you now that perhaps sometime there'll be a sequel to this talk when I crack that down. Now, that is all the detail. Oh, I did want to tell you one thing, and I forgot. This is the problem with things like this. In the original beam up, in this slide, I had meant to tell you, and I had forgotten already, that one of the things that was written up before the dedication of the building is that they were talking about, Squirrel was talking about having a domed skylight in the sanctuary. Now, I'm pretty sure that was never built, because when the dedication happened and they were talking about all the other windows and the doors and everything else, no one mentioned a domed skylight, which I'm pretty sure someone would have noticed. I talked to many, many people who grew up here in the synagogue and were around before the expansion, and they never mentioned it either. And I'm sure that they would have noticed it because, well, hot holidays. But there was no record of it at all. So, so much of what I've been doing has been piecing together all of these little bits and pieces. So the information I have is not complete, but I hope it gives you some idea of what we have here at Beth Shalom. Now I'm going to take you upstairs to the main sanctuary. If you would like to take the elevator, you're going to be able to follow Chris through that door. And if you would like to take the stairs, I'm going to go out this way and up the stairs. So thank you very much. Yes.
There are steps right next to the elevator that can go. Everybody can go if you want right through those doors.
The
I
entrance
understand that,
isn't
but it's
as
like,
grand.
I'm sorry.
You got
I think
it.
it's like going in the alley.
You got it.
So
Just wanted to point it.
okay, the windows are magnificent, aren't they? Now, if you want to walk around with me, because I will walk, feel free. You do not have to stay in the seat. But I want to start in the back of the building. If you take a look at the windows that are over the balcony, those are the 10 commandments that I showed you that were in the original sanctuary before the expansion. And those, by the way, are the original seats in the building. Underneath, the little windows on the one on the left-hand side is for Hanukkah. The Hebrew says, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. And it has the symbol of Hanukkah, which is a menorah. And on the right, you have the window for Torah and honor. And the border is a scroll. And just means a foreign holiday. Now we're going to start with the original windows.
Excuse me?
I want to start with the second window from the balcony on the right. This is the window for Passover. So, of course, this is the Exodus. And this is the beginning of, I think it was one of the many New Years that we have. In all the windows, you're going to see a very, very similar pattern. At the very top, there's a medallion. Underneath, you're going to see a circle, a diamond, and usually an arch. And this pattern is repeated all the way through the windows, more or less. Now, at the very top of this window, in the medallion, you're going to see a cup and candles. This happens at every holiday. The cup is for wine, you say a blessing of wine, and you say a blessing of the candles to usher in the holiday. And behind the cup, there is a Seder plate, and on it there's an egg, there are greens, and I think it might be a chaperone. But it is what's right. And then you see all the clouds, and whenever you see clouds on the windows, it usually represents the heavens of God. And the Hebrew immediately under there is, I am the Lord your God. When you get into the circle, you have a burning bush, and that says, brought you out of the land of Egypt. You get into the diamond, and you see a Seder table, and in the background is Jerusalem. This is because Passover is one of what's called the three pilgrimage festivals. These are the three festivals when you were supposed to go to Jerusalem to sacrifice things at the temple. In Hebrew it's called Squirrel, which I like just because it means the three walkies. Walkies. Very good, so your legs are walking. Okay? And you probably are aware that in Judaism that we do not actually do people in our windows. You are rarely going to see people in our windows or in any of our art. So when you're looking in the arch, this is the crossing of the Red Sea. And if you look at the brown area, the land, you can see the very hint of an outline of people. And if you look into the sea, you can see the chariots of the Egyptians who were drowned in the sea. The Torah scrolls are just the tribute to the people that the windows are dedicated to. And the border, you just have a repetition of the cup and the candle theme. Now, the window closest to the balcony is for Shavuot. This is Shavuot just means weeks, 7 weeks after Passover. This is to commemorate getting the Torah, the first one was getting the Torah on Mount Sinai. This is when we officially became people, I think. And in the medallion at the very top, you see a sheet of wheat. Now this is a symbolic of something called counting of the Omer. If you really want to know what that is, I can recommend any number of rabbis to tell you about it. Underneath, you have Torah scrolls. You can see the heart there too. But they're coming out of the heavens, and if you look closely, you can see stars and planets in the heavens up there. You come down into the circle, and you have Mount Sinai, and you've got clouds on Mount Sinai, and it says, I am the Lord your God, which are the first words of the Ten Commandments. You look at the diamond, I want you to look on either side of the diamond, and you can see that the diamond is actually overlaid on a Torah scroll. And the Hebrew is from Exodus, and it says, we will do and we will hear. If you come down into the circle, you have an eternal light, holiday and into the morning, these are all symbols of a custom of staying up all night on this holiday in the Jewish study. And the border, the very bottom is just like a harvest seed, and the border is more flowers and wheat. Now we're going to go back. If you go to the first window closest to the balcony on the left-hand side, this is the high holidays. At the very top of that medallion, you see the scales. This is the judgment that's happening on the holiday. The wings and the crown is all the kingship of God. And in the clouds, you have a quote from Exodus. These are the 13 attributes of God. I can tell you what they are afterwards if you want to know. In the diamond, you have another eternal light. In the border, you have a shofar, which is the ram's horn, that is blown on high holidays. And it is the one thing you are absolutely supposed to do on high holidays is hear that shofar being blown. Underneath in the arch, that's just a tribute to the people that the window is dedicated to. We come over to the next window. This window is the second window from the balcony. This is for Sukkot. A Sukkot just means shelter. And this happens almost immediately after Yom Kippur, and it's a harvest festival. So that is why at the top, once again, you have the symbols of a festival with the cup and the candles, but you have all the abundance of the harvest up there too. The clouds, that sun in there actually has the word Shaddai on it, and that's one of the many names of God. And in the circle, it's difficult to read. You actually have a blessing of one of the prayers that's in the evening service that you do on Shabbat festivals. It's Hashkavinu. And this says, the one who spreads the shelter of peace over us, over all his people, Israel, and over Jerusalem. And the diamond, you have a sukkah. And the tradition is that you it's a temporary shelter, and the roof that you put on, you should be able to see through so that you can see the stars. And if you look, you can see again stars and planets at the top of that.
Are questions okay?
Sure.
So when you were talking downstairs about the Pittsburgh stained glass and the artists, they were not Jews, right?
No.
So who were the Jews? Do we know who the Jews were that were conferring on the iconography of the windows?
Alexander Squirrel was the architect. He was Jewish.
Who was that?
And he did it for these windows. And Rabbi Moshe Bolu did it for the new windows.
Oh, nice.
I have a question also. You said there are no people. Is there a reason for that?
Idolatry. Okay. Now, yes.
When you're being asked questions, can you just repeat the question? Because I think not everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right.
Thank you.
May I interject that yes, Tree of Life has people in its windows before people ask. And it's okay with us.
It's tradition. It's not law. It's tradition. Now, this window also has in the border what's called a lulav and an etrog. An etrog is just a big one. And the lulav is palm branch, myrtle, and willow. Sit here going, Hadassah. And there's a custom of waving this palm branch on Sukkot. Now, to get into the arch, I will tell you that this is the window that made me actually read all the dedications. You see all the dedications at the bottom of the windows? When I was doing all my research, I kept skipping over that. And I came to this window. I started at the front, moved down. I came to this window, and you can see that the scrolls in the arch of the candelabra, there's a quote, a Rachel quote about Joseph. And I said, what the heck do Rachel and Joseph have to do with Sukkot? So I asked knowledgeable friends, I asked rabbis of other traditions. They all said, I don't know. I read the dedication. It's for Joseph and Rachel Borowski. So I paid special attention after that to all of the dedications, and I can tell you a little bit about some of the people. Not a lot, though, they're hard to track down. These are the windows that were done by Howard Dillard, and the ones that we just reviewed. These were part of the original sanctuary that was here, and it is the 6 windows in the front are part of the expansion. The sanctuary probably ended originally somewhere around here. So I'd like to also do the new windows for you. Do you have any other questions about the old windows? Yeah, we do.
Actually, it's more about the shul itself. Was the orientation still on the...
Yes, this is the same orientation. Yes.
You mentioned that the borders on the original windows being removed to fit new spaces. What happened to those panels?
I don't know. I don't know what happened to the panels that were removed from the original windows. They could be that great because I'm looking out.
So do we know who designed the 2 that are on the balcony?
That was also
they look
designed by
different.
Howard.
They just look different in terms of
Yes.
the glass quality. Did anyone say anything about that?
The glass quality over here is primarily because that's artificial lighting behind it, and some of those light bulbs aren't there. But that is this one. But they are from the same design.
Sorry, can I ask, what's the significance of the 5-branch candelabra in the Sukkot window? Because
No particular significance at all, it just fit nicely. So there's no significance when you get into the tributes on the Sukkot window and the High Holiday window and the scrolls over there. There's no particular significance. It's just part of the tribute to the person who it's dedicated to. Now I'm going to come all the way back to the front, and we're going to see the new windows. Now I will tell you that even I was able to tell that these were the new windows because this is commemorating the state of Israel, and I knew that didn't happen before 1931. So this window, when you start off on the medallion, you have the eye and the clouds, and that's all the guardianship of in the heavens, God's guardianship in the heavens. And the Hebrew immediately underneath it said, "This is from the Lord." The book that's there is really a Zionist text called The Jewish State that was written by Theodore Herzl, and it says, "If you will it, it is no dream," which was a Zionist motto. When you get into the circle, you see the symbols for the UN, the Israeli flag, and that's the Declaration of the State of Israel. Now, below left, there's a little ship there. That's actually Exodus. If you have your binoculars, you can actually read the word Exodus on it. That is the immigration into Israel. And on the right, with the lantern, the scroll, and the gavel, that scroll has Chaim Weizmann's name on it. He was the first president of Israel. When you get into the diamond, this is a kibbutz, which is pretty much the story of the beginning of Israel. And below left of that diamond, you can see a watchtower. And this is what happened when they were putting up a kibbutz. They would take this prefabricated building, go out to the land, put up the watchtower, and by nightfall, the area of land was enclosed, and you had the watchtower there for defense. If you get into the arch, you have the map of Israel with the original borders, the 1948 borders. The menorah is the national emblem of Israel. That building is the Knesset, the parliament. And the fish in the sea are symbolic of the hope to grow and multiply. And at the very bottom of the arch is the date of independence, the 5th of ER 5708. That's May 14th, 1948. And all around the border, you have doves and palm branches. And that, of course, is symbolic that Israel will be able to live in peace. Now I'm going to go to the first window on this side, and this is the Jerusalem window. Yes?
Quick question. It looks like there are coins and diamonds. Diamonds?
Yes. We're asking about the coins up there. I don't know what those are. They look like they are just coins for Israel. I have been researching that and trying to find out, but no one has been able to give me any other significance other than that. The pick and shovel is just all the people who actually work so hard to make the land flow with milk and honey. Back to Jerusalem. In the medallion at the top, you can see the Ark. This is the Ark of the Covenant that's carried through the desert, through the wilderness, and was put into the first temple. This is a gate into, there is, the Hebrew there, by the way, is from Psalms, and it's the, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem. You can see the gate going into Jerusalem, and the lion and the scepter are symbolic of the monarchy. And if you come down into the circle, you have the western wall, the Kotel, with the Israeli flag. And this is the reunification of Jerusalem that happened after the Six-Day War in 1967. Underneath the circle on the left is Hebrew University. On the right is the Kennedy Memorial. The Kennedy Memorial is supposed to be a tree that was cut down in its prime. In the diamond, you have the Tower of David. This was a fortress, a citadel. And in the arch, you have various buildings that are in Jerusalem. At the top, you can see the YMCA, the King David Hotel. There is the chapel at Hebrew University, and that little dome-like thing at the bottom is the Shrine of the Book, and that's where the, looks like the lid to a pot, that's where the Dead Sea Scrolls are housed. In the little panel underneath that, you have the Tomb of Absalom, that's at the foot of the Mount of Olives, the Mosque of Omar, and the Dome of the Rock. And the border, you have harp and trumpet, which is all celebratory. Now we come to the next window, the second one again, and this is for Tisha B'Av, which is the 9th of Av. This is a national day of mourning, and it is commemorating the destruction of the first and second temples. So the crown is the God is there even in moments of destruction. You have a picture of the temple and a scepter. And so along with the burning of the temple, you have the destruction of the scepter of Judah as the end of the monarchy. And the Hebrew says, Zion, do you not ask? Now this is from a poem from Yehuda Halevi, and this is actually included in the liturgy for Tisha B'Av. If you come underneath, you see you have Torah scrolls that are burning, and this is symbolic of the fact that the tradition has it that all the bad things that have happened, expulsion from Spain, all these other things happened on Tisha B'Av. So this day of mourning is for the destruction of not just the temple, although that's the primary reason, but for all the communities that were destroyed, that sort of thing. The tents, we have the encampment of the Romans outside of Jerusalem. And then you have have, things like around it, you see like an onion dome, and you see windmill, and some other things. I've been told that that's representing all the different communities that were destroyed. One of the buildings, like on the right, that's just touching the top of the arch, that's the synagogue at Prague. So all of those are going on. But in the diamond, you have a banner that has words of the Maccabees, who is for God to come and join me. Because the Maccabees were also very involved in the overthrow whenever one of the temples was destroyed. You get into the arch, and now we come to Messiah at the very top. That was the last fortification that was taken by the Romans in 70. The parchment, did you see the scraps of parchment? This is just the first few words from Isaiah. It says, "For a small moment I have forsaken you." To the right of that parchment, you can see the clay vessels. This is the Dead Sea Scrolls. And then the mountain and the bow and arrow are actually symbolic of the Bar Kokhba revolt. Bar Kokhba was a man who led a revolt against all the Romans. They tried not to confront them head on. It was all guerrilla warfare. The mountain is Beitar, and that is outside Bethlehem. And that was where the Romans, Hadrian sent in 35,000 troops, and they took the last fortification of Bar Kokhba and destroyed Beitar and killed everyone who was there. Underneath that, you have once again the clouds representing heavens, and this is supposed to be the third temple. Now, I'm going to tell you straight out, I really hope it looks better than that. The border is all thistles, and this is just representing the harshness of life. Now, I'm going to come back to this side, and this is the Shoah window, the Holocaust window. At the very top of the medallion, you have Shin, which is representative of God. It's a letter that represents God, and it's in flames. And this is the idea that without God's presence, man is capable of great evil. We have 6 dead trees and 6 candles, of course, representing the 6 million Jews. And the live trees are the forest that was planted by the Jewish National Fund in memory of all of those who perished at that time. The Hebrew is from Psalms, and it says, "From the straits I called God." And the circle is the Warsaw Ghetto. In the diamond, you have burnt logs with names of some of the camps. And below the diamond, it says, "From the ashes came the embers," because even though 6 million Jews were destroyed, they still left a spark out of which new life was created. We get down into the more hopeful part, where you have an olive tree, a symbol of the Jewish people, and then, of course, symbols from Isaiah. You will recognize the swords being beaten into plowshares and the lion lying down with the lamb. And the border is barbed wire and the yellow star. Now, I'm going to move on to a life cycle window. At the very top, you have a pomegranate, because this is the beginning of life, and also God is the source of life. The clouds, once again, all heavens. And then you have an egg, symbolizing the beginning of life. The extinguished candle, symbol of a spent life, and an hourglass, the limited time that we have. The Hebrew underneath, that is at the very top of the circle, says God will guard your going out and your coming in from now until eternity, and that's from Psalms. And then in the circle we have a palm tree, and this really represents the idea that there's a tradition of planting a tree anytime child is born. And so that is just representing that tradition. The chair is the chair of Elijah, which is used during circumcision. The knife, I'm not explaining. And the coins are for the redemption of the firstborn, something that's called Pidyon Aben. This is the firstborn male, and there is a custom of redeeming them when they turn 30 days, a month old. It's a little difficult to see because of the colors, but below the circle, before the diamond, in that little purplish area, there are mezuzahs. These are the little parchments that go on doorways, and it has a little passage from the Bible in it. In the diamond, you're looking at symbols of a bar mitzvah. The top of it, you can see the Yanagi, the kippah. You have a Torah scroll, and the yod, that little finger pointing thing, is because when you read the Torah scroll, it's on parchment, and you don't want to touch it and wear it out, so you use a little pointer whenever you read it. And this is from Numbers. The quote on there is from Numbers. And it starts with, and you will remember all the commandments of God and do them, and not explore after your heart and after your eyes. You know, it goes on a little bit. And around it, you can see the prayer shawl, the talit, that is worn, and that's worn the first time on a young boy or a young girl whenever they celebrate their bar or bat mitzvah. When you're coming down into the arch area, we're looking at the marriage. The rings, of course, the commitment of husband and wife. You have the chuppah, the wedding canopy. Now, there are also, there's the cedar and the cypress there. These full-grown trees. The cedar represents the man, the cypress represents the woman, and these are the trees that traditionally were planted. And there's a custom in some communities of taking branches from both of those trees and making the marriage canopy, the wedding canopy, out of those branches. You have a kiddush cup. This is used, of course, during the marriage ceremony. The book has the words from Jeremiah, and there's a song that goes with it, and it's the voice of joy, and the voice of happiness, and the voice of the groom, and the voice of the bride. The border is just a prayer shawl, talit, and the tefillin, you know, the prayer boxes that you wear on your arm and on your head, and that's your daily obligation of prayer. And now I'm going to my friend JDR's favorite window. I should mention JDR, my friend. I dragged her into this research. She was here with me many days with my binoculars, helping me read the Hebrew. So I want you to acknowledge her effort here. This is the Sabbath window. And the crown is the symbol of the Sabbath Queen. And you have the angel's wings and the clouds. And you notice that one of the wings is white and one is gray. And that comes from a story that angels accompany you on the Sabbath. And these angels come to your house, and they look in the window, and they see that the table is set, and everybody's dressed, and everybody's happy, and there's harmony in the home, and there's a beautiful meal coming out. The angel in white says, may it be like this next week, and the dark angel has to say, Amen. But if you go to the house, and there's discord, and there's nothing on the table, and there's no preparation for the Sabbath, the dark angel says, may it be like this next week, and the angel in white has to say, Amen. In the circle, you have 6 little circles that are representing the 6 days of creation. And the shadow of light, of course, is the Sabbath day. The Hebrew up there, of course, is remember the Sabbath day. And so the Sabbath light is coming down into the home. See how it's coming out of the heavens and down into the home? And at the top of that diamond, you have a woman's hands. She's lighting the candles, and this is part of a tradition. Whenever you say the blessing, you light the candles, and there's a little waving over the candles. You cover your eyes, you say the blessing, and then you open your eyes and see the light. Some women also will say a prayer when their eyes are shut, silently, for their families, any of those sorts of things. On the table, you see of course, the candles, the cup for the wine, and there is bread covered with a purple cloth, and on it there's Hebrew that is from Exodus, and it says they gathered double the food. Because if you remember the story, we were not allowed to do any work on the Sabbath, so God was giving us manna from heaven, and we had to go out before the Sabbath and gather double the food, because we weren't allowed to gather on the Sabbath. The beehives are the sweetness of the Sabbath, the books, the joy of study. And if you get into the arch, you see at the very top there's a book there. That is the Talmud, and it is open to something from Joshua that says you shall meditate upon it day and night. On the left side, there's 1 star, and the Sabbath begins when you can see 1 star in the sky. And on the right, you see 3 stars, and the Sabbath ends when you can see 3 stars in the night sky. And the bridge is just taking us from the Sabbath into the rest of the week. And at the end of the Sabbath, there is a ceremony called Havdalah, which says goodbye to the Sabbath Queen and wishes everyone a good and sweet week. All of the symbolism around is just enhancing the beauty of the Sabbath, all those flowers, and that are the windows. These are the windows, these 6 windows in the front, these are the ones by Peter Brown, where the windows in the back are by Howard Wilbert, but all of these windows were made by Pittsburgh Stained Glass Studios. If you have any questions, and I probably gave you more information that you really wanted to know, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything you might have.
Barbara, where are the windows that were on the loading dock?
They are actually still on the loading dock, and we're making arrangements to bring them here.
And are there arrangements being made to put them up or just store them?
We are not going, the windows that are on the loading dock are going to be shipped here, and what we're going to do is actually just lay them out. We have to put them in a place where no young people are around, because you might not be aware, but all of these windows are put together with lead. So we have a place that we've selected where we're going to put them, and we have to have Pittsburgh Stained Glass Studios personnel actually take those windows out and put them down, because they have to be handled in a very particular way. Once we have them, we're going to lay them out and find out what the heck they are. And then we're going to make a decision about what we're going to do. I'm hoping that we'll be able to put them together, and at the very least put them in a frame and perhaps hang them in a window if they're not too big, you know, so that we should be able to do something with them. I said, the sequel to this talk. So, any other questions? Yes?
So
Pittsburgh Stained Glass still exists?
Yes,
And they
Pittsburgh
still
Stained
do?
Glass has been in business since I think 1909.
And where are they?
They're in the south side, sort of over by the west end.
And there's still enough craftsmen there that are doing painted glass like this?
They do magnificent glass for all sorts of things. They do it for homes. I look at all the old homes that are around here that have stained glass. In fact, they have a whole section of things that they call bathroom glass, because when the houses started getting so close together, they started putting in stained glass in bathrooms.
And the other place you mentioned, that there was a second place in
Hunt
Pittsburgh?
Studios, yes, they also have a business. They're still in business and they're still doing work. Yes.
I just wanted to share, I did a tour at Pittsburgh Stained Glass like in the last 2 years, the doors open, and I think they repeated it this year, but it already occurred. They might do it again next year. It was fascinating. You have to go through the whole
I
place.
went, I think, to that one a really long time ago. And
Yeah,
they
it's a-
had like
it's a
seats that they
magnificent,
pulled out that was outstanding.
Learning experience, yes.
What was the maintenance? What was the maintenance of these windows? Is it like annual cleaning or?
I have no idea. I am not involved in maintenance.
I think that, if I could just interject,
Sure.
the last time that these windows were cleaned would be when
After the fire?
the chapel was refurbished after the fire. And in the time that I was here before that, it wasn't like there was a regular.
I don't believe there is a regular program. We do have, we're making arrangements, by the way, with Pittsburgh Stained Glass. Whenever they deliver our crate of, our mystery box, we're going to actually have them take a look at the windows and advise us on what we should be doing. So we're hoping, yes.
Did you say there was a fire?
The fire happened in 97? I thought it was 96. I think we had a fire in 1996, which is when a lot of additional work was done, but since it didn't affect the stained glass, I didn't mention it.
Okay.
So, yes.
Tell us about the stained windows downstairs as you come in. There's one against the wall.
Yes.
Are you going to tell us about those?
No. No, not today.
Two questions, and you may have already said this, but one, what do we know about the people whose names are at the bottom of the windows? Is there some repository or knowledge about? Imagine they must have been important people in their time.
We're asking about the people who were dedicated to some, we've got past presidents, we've got other prominent people who were there. I have been trying to track down all of it, but I do not yet have all the information.
And the second question is, how did you learn about all this?
How did I learn about this? Sheer stubbornness. I have to tell you, it was as a assistant, just sitting here. I've sat in this sanctuary longer than a sane person would, with my binoculars, because as you notice, you really can't read all of this Hebrew very well. Taking notes, looking things up, going to the rabbi saying, this is Hebrew, it's familiar, but I can't place it. Where's it from? And he's like, I don't know. What's the way of having him come running back going, wait, I know. So I involved friends, I involved rabbis, and I would involve anybody who would stand still long enough to let me tell them about the windows. I'm going to go back up into the archives because we have some very old records to see if I can find some of these people, especially the people who, from the 1931, because those people are not in our current national records. But we have old ones up there. The only problem is the archives here at Beth Shalom are filed in what I consider the sedimentary method. The oldest is his max number, just to keep the data alive. So it's a little bit hard. But that was one question.
Yeah, no, well, those are the two. I mean, I was
Oh, I did.
impressed. Even I've sat many an hour here daydreaming, looking at the windows. But you made that comment about the bread behind the for the Sabbath thing. I was like, whoa! Now I'm looking at yes, I see the part of the loaf sticking out. But you have a sharp eye for this. Binoculars.
Another question on that. I'm really interested in the relationship between the artist and like Rabbi Goldblum, who I didn't know. Are there notes of like how that kind of conversation went?
The relationship between Rabbi Goldblum and Peter Brown, this stained glass, is only alluded to in different contracts and letters, where you get a letter saying, oh, well, in consultation with Rabbi Goldblum. But there aren't any minutes of their meetings or anything like that.
Because it seems like the program for these windows is pretty interesting, and that the rabbi would have had to really know something to tell somebody who's not Jewish how to set these up. So, I mean, it's interesting, but there's no record of that conversation.
Keep in mind also that the art designer, whether it's Peter Braun or Albert Wilbert, they did a lot of research on their own too. Because when they were given the concepts, they would go and make sure they read about it, that they looked up as much as they could find about things. They would consult, sketch, consult, to make sure that they were accurate. These people were very used to this because they were doing Presbyterian and Methodist and Episcopal and nationality rooms and all these sorts of things. So they were very much accustomed to doing a lot of research. And that also is reflected in a lot of correspondence that I've read about the windows. Yes?
Is there something that's uniquely Jewish about the symbols, the circle, the triangle, the arch? They seem to all have that theme.
They all have that same pattern, but there's nothing particularly Jewish about it. I think it was just a way to make the windows a little bit more cohesive and still divide it up sufficiently that it wasn't just a hodgepodge. Yes?
You may have said this, but is that winding through the candles for the 6 million? Is it a serpent? Or is it just a...
It's a lamed. A lamed. It's the letter L. It's lamed.
For sex.
Another thing I don't know. Yes?
I know you said this, but those windows are how old and these are how old?
These windows are 1931, and these windows were finished in 1970. Yes?
There been plans to publish all your findings?
Am I going to publish my findings? Maybe. I don't feel that the story is complete yet. I have, there's so much I don't know yet. I have notes on every single piece of stained glass in this building, who they're dedicated to, all that sort of thing, and I just feel that there's so much more work that has to be done on it beforehand. But probably I should. Because otherwise, some other poor person is going to be sitting here with binoculars trying to figure out what all these things are. Yes, that's it? Well, thank you so much.